Oh, that'll do. Yeah, that'll do.
And we're live! Hi, my name is Sophia Bota, and today we have a special edition of Bofa Chats, where we're going to be talking to Jane Fae. You there, Jane?
I'm here, yeah.
Cool. Jane is an awesome trans activist and journalist, and I've known her for many years, and she's sort of becoming, in a way, my trans mum. And we've got a lot to talk about the state of, when it comes to the state of trans rights. But before we begin, I want to show you a video of basically how the BBC seems to treat trans rights, which is quite humiliating and demeaning. And unfortunately, this features Jane, who I kind of think was put up to, basically was ambushed somewhat. So So let me play you this video. This is from Victoria, Derbyshire. From I think this was when was this? Oh shit! Oh fuck's sake! Excuse me a minute. I'm going to scream. I accidentally deleted that screen. Right, hold on, folks. Just wait a minute. Let me just redo that.
Because I thought.
Okay, sorry about that. There we are. Okay. So we have this is from the Victoria, Derbyshire show from 2018, and basically this is a Dutch guy who I just think's a troll. You'll see what I mean. And poor old Jane had to basically put up with this guy.
Trying to legally change his age from 69 to 49, with the aim of, well, you can tell us what the aim is in a moment, actually. Emil Rattleband, a motivational speaker, attempting to move his birthday from the 11th of March 1949 to the 11th of March 1969. You can change your name, you can change your gender. Why not your age, he says. Nowhere are you so discriminated against as with your age. That's what he said to a Dutch newspaper. He's here, as you can see, alongside writer Jane Fae, who doesn't agree that self-identifying your gender is the same as self-identifying your age. Good morning, both of you. First of all, is this simply a publicity stunt, or are you serious?
No, of course not. Yes, I'm really serious. I'm like, you know, I'm a guy that always goes to the front and is an example. For example, 35 years ago, I went to my dentist to get my amalgam fillings out of my mouth. And I had to visit 5 dentists before they did.
Okay, let's talk about now.
Okay.
What's the problem for you with being 69?
It's a problem. Okay, my doctor says I'm a biological age is 42. And so he has to put it on paper. I said, okay, why I'm not that age? So I want to be that age, 49. I said, okay, I want it for 49.
Well, what is it that you can't do at 69 that you think you'd be able to do at 49?
For example, we have a high unemployment in Holland, and all those people who are unemployed are above 55. So when you're 55, you're not able to get a job. For example, when I want
But
to...
you're not unemployed?
No, of course not. But if I
So that's not a reason.
If I want to buy a house, I don't get a mortgage anymore. But in my job, you know...
Have you got a mortgage now, though?
I have a mortgage, but if I want to change my house, I want to have a new mortgage, it's impossible, because I'm too old. So, but in my job, what I'm doing, most people ask me always, yeah, but you're almost 70, how can you do that? Do you speak the language from people who are 35? Do you really understand the problems nowadays? Because you're an old man. I said, no, I'm not old man, I'm a wise man. But I always have to defend myself. And sometimes I have to lie about my age, and I don't want that. So I want a legalization.
Why do you have to lie about your age?
No, because people say, I don't believe, or they say, if you go to some people, they say, okay, you tell that you are younger because you look more younger than you are, and so then you have to lie to them. So I don't want to do that. I want to have legalization. It's my feeling. And so
you won't get an extra 20 years of life. You know.
Well, no, that's not true, because there was an examination about in 2010 over here in England, and they put old people in a new environment with young people, and they saw that their age was they became younger, healthy.
You've got 7 children with twins on the way.
Yeah,
so you're surrounded by young people.
Yeah, but I'm surrounded. But I want to have legalization. So that's my feeling, and I want to respect that you respect my feeling.
Sure.
And if you respect my feeling, I want to go to court and I say, okay, I want a legalization.
You have compared this to trans people who legally change their gender.
Yeah.
Why?
I did what?
You have compared this to trans people who legally change their gender.
Because nowadays it's like we have the free will. In the past it was always like this. We have to do what the state or the church or our parents told us. Now we can go traveling wherever we want, and we can change our names if we want, and we can change also our gender if we want. So why I cannot change my age then?
Jane Fae, does he have a point?
Well, I'm actually quite flabbergasted. I started out on this thinking I was going to be sympathetic. I'm less sympathetic the more I hear about it, because I thought we were talking about discrimination here. And
age discrimination.
Age discrimination. And I thought, well, perhaps in Holland you have less robust laws, but you have a job. A mortgage company is not interested in your age. A mortgage company is interested in how many years you're likely to be alive. And it doesn't matter what age, it says.
No, that's not true.
Well,
So tell Emil what you think about his
in
comparison
terms of the other,
to
I mean,
trans.
it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of places where people fib. The whole, I think you mentioned Tinder. I mean, I thought everybody fibbed on Tinder.
Yeah, that's quite humiliating, I kind of think. Jane? Sorry, Jane's not on screen at the
Yep.
moment.
How can you tell? Are you watching me?
Well, yeah,
Oh, you probably are.
on both screens.
Oh, all right. I should turn that off. I should turn that off.
Were you fully briefed before this?
Yes, fairly. I mean, I think I've always not entirely agreed with you about this because for me, I do not go into these things as if there's some sort of intellectual debate. And given what I was up against, it's probably just as well. Guys performing, it's a performative thing that's going on here. And there's a degree of performance going on there as well. So, yes, I knew what I was up against. But the job is not to put some sort of intellectual argument because most people just think what he's talking is a load of nonsense.
Yeah,
And,
that's what I thought. I just thought he was being a fucking troll. That's all.
yes, absolutely. But you see, it's not up to Victoria, who entirely goes on her programme. And so she gets this guy there. And really what was going on in the studio, which you maybe don't see so well, is Victoria and I just sort of looking at one another and rolling our eyes and going, good God, what is this guy got here? So it was very much the two of us against, is probably not something I should say when you're talking about a BBC interviewer, but that was very much the vibe going on there. So however we got to that situation, you know, whether it was some anti-trans producer thought this would be a fun wheeze to put up, Victoria was very much on side. Victoria was great. And it just felt like he made himself look like a complete and utter plonker.
Yeah, we'll get on to how transphobic the BBC have become.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
But a couple of news stories which have been doing the rounds in the last few days. First of all, I showed a clip of a video of you sitting on a panel with Milo a few days ago.
Oh.
Of course, he's come out now saying that he's ex-gay, and that his husband is now his housemate, which me and Osma thought was very, very funny, because Milo's is about as gay as they come. Do you buy that he's now come out, he's now straight, having met him?
I don't wish to judge. I have no idea. Again, a lot of this stuff, and I tend to nowadays, well, no, that's not entirely true. A lot of this stuff is performative, and I just run away from it, which is an odd thing to say because elsewhere I do perform, but when I'm performing, I'm performing. It's called comedy, well, I hope it's called comedy, and it's very clear what I'm doing. Whereas an awful lot of people in the media nowadays, they are just performing a role. So quite frankly, what Milo thinks about anything, I don't know. I've got no idea whatsoever.
Right. I was also going to say there was a news story today that there's disquiet with the advisory committee to Pride. Members have resigned due to it being a hostile environment towards those who aren't white. That's been in the Guardian. I think this is something we might discuss later because I've commented on before that the trans community in particular does seem to be very white and very middle class, and there isn't enough diversity. Sure, there are people like Monroe Berghoff, but on the whole, that's been my experience. Also, there was another story which I thought you might have seen. 1 in 3 LGBTQ journalists have been bullied at their place of work.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised it's only that many.
Frankly. Well, that's yeah. I was surprised it might. I thought it might be for far higher actually.
Yes.
Considering how transphobic and homophobic the media and news media still is. Anyways, when we were talking about doing this, I remember you saying, I was saying, well, let's have a chat about the state of trans rights in the UK, and you went, well, I could sum it up in one word: shit. So it would be a short stream. Do you want to talk about the state, how bad things are for trans rights at the moment in the UK?
Not entirely, because I'm going to put a slightly different slant on it and say that it's not really as bad as it looks. What is going on? We have a dedicated bunch of, you can call them fascists, you can call them neo-Nazis or whatever, who have sort of taken refuge behind women's issues. And that includes some of the women who are doing it, and it includes a lot of fellow travellers. And it's the same coalition. The motivation behind this is people who are genuinely religious, extreme, and want to strip rights away from the triple. They want to take away trans rights, want to take away LGBT rights, and they want to take away women's rights. And they have struck very lucky in the UK, in the sense that the chaos of Brexit, it's been divisive and it's led to much more extreme politics coming out. And it means that there was a focus, because so much of what has happened over the last few years has happened because Theresa May had this whizzo idea about reforming the Gender Recognition Act and then didn't follow through. If she'd followed through, then one of two things would have happened. There'd have been a short, sharp campaign and she'd have won it, or a short, sharp campaign and she'd have lost it, but it would have been done and dusted. And the opportunity for these anti-trans reactionaries to get any sort of purchase would have been very, very slight. So what you're seeing is a lot of court action, which is what goes on in the States. The right wing has got a lot of money and it pours it into court actions. I'm surprised you didn't pick up on yesterday's glorious court action, in which it would appear, and doesn't know how much of the funds they raised, but it would appear that one particular anti-trans organisation spaffed something like £100,000 up against the wall in order to make sure that the census.
No, I have seen that story. I have.
Yes. Let me finish that off. They've spaffed £100,000 up against the wall to ensure that the census is on the same question as it was in 2011, which isn't actually the result they wanted. And a very short news flash for people filling out their census this weekend. Firstly, you don't have to read the guidance anyway. But second, the census have now just withdrawn their guidance. Therefore, nothing has changed since 2011. And the anti-trans have just pissed away a very large sum of money to ensure nothing has changed.
Which they raised with crowdfunding, and it's like, well, I remember the days when we used to have a whip round to support campaigns against regimes and organisations which were persecuting people. Now it seems to be that people are having a whip round to fund to ensure there is persecution and discrimination. And sorry, but I just think something is severely fucked up in this country.
Well, there is, but let me just say, firstly, there's a lot of people who claim somehow ever to be progressive, and they're not, and they haven't been ever, but now they think they are, and they're involved in this, and they're fairly wealthy middle-class men, and a lot of them are middle-class, middle-aged women. But you asked about what was going on in this country. There's a lot of legal action, and crowdfunders are a very good way of smuggling money in from the States, because you can't quite see who's given the big bucks into the crowdfunders. And if you subtract the legal froth, there's 2 or 3 more cases still to come to a close. Parliament has sort of argued itself to a standstill. What was very interesting was the majority from both the SNP got its hate bill through, which I think has shown the SNP that there is easily a majority in Parliament for trans positive measures. It's quite clear that the new intake of Tories is very LGBT favourable.
Well, I was gonna bring something up, talking
Go on, bring it up.
conversion therapy. Now, I obviously the government have been, Theresa May first started saying, well, they were gonna outlaw conversion therapy in 2018, and here we are, almost 3 years later, and still, no action. And even Bernard Jenkins is on the hard right, I'd add, has said the government needs to take action in outlawing conversion therapy. And so, there seems to me to be a majority on the Tory benches who want to at least outlaw conversion therapy, and of course, who pops up and says, with warns against banning conversion therapy? Oh yes, the LGBT Alliance, who are nothing but a hate group. And they're not just, obviously people sort of know them for being transphobic as fuck, but they're not just transphobic, they are homophobic as fuck. They oppose same-sex marriage. They are supported by neo-Nazis.
I'm not going to get into publicising the LGBT Alliance. The key thing is that there is...
Well, I think it's not about publicising them. The thing is that the BBC... Look, put it like this, right? Last year there was before the Kira Bell case there was another case of a trans youth who was taking the NHS to court for delaying their treatment. Okay, and the BBC got instead of getting a quote from Mermaids, who are the charity who support trans youth, they got a quote from the LGBT Alliance. That is like the BBC writing a news story about the Jewish community and getting a quote from the fucking National Front.
Yeah, it's the BBC is wild.
And the BBC seems to think that this is okay. They seem to think it's okay to have Newsnight reports on trans issues not featuring one fucking trans person.
Oh, quite. What I'm trying to say is that I think this is coming to a close. God knows where this government is going to end, because it is a shower. But
I'd add obviously all the stuff that happened over the weekend, and I saw the interview with Patsy Stevenson, who was the woman who that's going to be one of the images of the year, who was thrown to the ground by police, and she was very inclusive in what she said. She said she
Absolutely.
was there for cis and trans women.
yes,
who are subjected to violence. And funny enough, I don't know about you. I don't always, obviously I'm aware of what TERFs are generally up to, but I don't know specifically. I haven't seen anything from TERFs speaking out against violence against women. Obviously, they will use the whole, violence against women thing to have a go at trans women. But this results in people like Posey Parker saying, they now want cis men with guns to go into female toilets to protect them from trans women. It's more likely cis men with guns are going to rape other cis women than any trans woman doing so. In fact, just shows how little TERFs know. Do they know what HRT does to the biology of trans women? Yeah?
No, I don't think. Well, they either don't know or they don't want to know. But what this is picking up on is the sort of gender crit, TERF, whatever you want to call them. They are leeching, and leech seems to be about the right word here, blood sucking, off a certain element of, retro political sentiment in the British public. It's for people who want to go back to the Blitz. It's for people who want the 1950s back again.
No, it's worse than that. Aria Koskela, who's one of those TERF lesbians who sort of said she was breaking from the left and supporting Trump. She is saying that there's lesbian erasure. This is based on the far right anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of the Great Replacement, which alleges that Jews are wanting mass immigration in the West to outbreed white people. It's the same deal with TERFs. And but I want to go back to the whole men with guns cis men with guns in female toilets to protect females from trans women, because it's like, this is not exactly consistent. I mean, bigots generally aren't, and it this really should show up to people, that essentially all the crap that TERFs spit out about they want to protect women from violence. No, they're just transphobic bigots. They just hate trans women. That's it. Okay? They don't give a shit about women's rights. If they give a shit about women's rights and violence against women, where were they protesting, Amy Coney Barrett's appointment to the US Supreme Court? This is a woman who would very much like to take, the reproduction rights of women away, and basically have Gilead enacted in fucking the United States. Yeah. Where were they? Protesting the murder of Sarah Everard. Nowhere. You see, this is the thing. Yeah, I will call them out for their own bullshit. I think I've spoken up more against violence against women than they fucking have. Also, the policing bill, I've read, it could actually prevent certain pride parades going ahead if bigots object. Do you know that?
Well, it could. It's like a lot of these things. It could interfere with almost everything. So I have no idea where they're going. But no, they're making hay at present because they have a very reactionary government in place. And where we go from here, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not just that they've got a reactionary government in place. They've got a piss weak opposition. I mean, yeah. I was actually shocked last week that Keir Starmer came out in favour of outlawing conversion therapy, because for the last year he's been sitting on the fence on LGBTQ issues. Every opportunity he has had to stand up, for trans rights, he has ducked.
Let me just come back. You were asking what's going on in the UK. We've got a very bad government, and we have a very major absence of opposition. But I think what is happening is a lot of politics is going to be taken to the streets because people are not happy. The TERF folks just don't do street politics. They're very happy to go around and dole out some stickers or wear some T-shirts.
They did do that protest at Pride a few years ago.
Well, that was 8 of them. I don't really count that as reclaiming the streets. What I'm trying to say here is that their movement is very out of tune with the times we're going into. And internationally, the UK is about... sorry, that's you moving back on the screen. And internationally, the UK is about to be very much out on a limb with Biden and the EU coming out much more strongly in favour of LGBT rights. So whilst it's very bad, I am seeing everywhere signs of a sort of LGBT spring in this country, with almost all the major political parties, including the Tory party.
I'm not sure about that. As I said, Starmer says
all except the opposition. That's the missing link.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with the Green Party, Sean Berry has certainly, she's been speaking up for, trans rights, and she has gone out of her way to say trans women are women. And yes, I know people will bring up, doesn't the Green Party have a TERF problem? Well, yes, it does, but so do all the major political parties. The Liberal Democrats, are probably the least transphobic of the major political parties. But personally, I think Liberal Democrats are a bit of a joke, and I don't trust them. Generally, because though at a parliamentary level they might seem least transphobic, the least homophobic, I can tell you at the grassroots that's not the case, because I remember at the time civil partnerships were made legal, a local Liberal Democrat councillor told me, I've got nothing against gays and lesbians so long as they don't live next door to me.
Yeah.
Seriously, that actually was said to me by a
local.
Well, yeah, I mean, round here, most Liberal Democrats are, shall we say, closeted Tories. Anyways, someone asks in chat, do you think TERF is the right way to call them? No, I don't actually. I actually think they should just be called transphobic bigots, because that's what they are. I mean, I remember Owen Jones said there shouldn't be any special classification for transphobic bigots. They're just transphobic bigots. Yeah, exactly. If anyone else has got any questions, please put them in chat, and if I think it's a decent question, I will certainly ask it. As someone who has worked, in the political sphere and the media, do you think the impression I get is, obviously you and I remember the very first time we ever actually met, we went to Parliament together, all those many years ago, and at that time it did seem that there was a willingness of MPs to want to listen to us, but after
there still is.
I don't know. It seems like the first half of the last decade, there seem to be, there seemed to be a willingness to want things to progress, but then after around about 2015, it seemed there was a backlash.
I would put the backlash at 2017. To be honest, it was the.
Do you? And the other question the question I would attach to that. Do you think it actually had something to do? And okay, we live in the UK, but do you think that had something to do with Trump being in the White House?
Yes, I think it was a confluence of several things. One of those things was Trump in the White House and making it perfectly respectable to be anti-LGBT and racist and misogynist and all the rest of it. At the same time, we had a complete fiasco in parliamentary terms, where we had something like 4 different women equalities ministers in 3 years. They couldn't progress. They couldn't even give a decent narrative for the bill they were trying to take forward on the Gender Recognition Act. And it's no wonder things went astray. And the one other element, and if anything, the major element. And get back, no, I don't know what to call these people. I mean, TERF gives far too much to them. That was a term coined by actual radical feminists to describe those radical feminists who are trans exclusionary, and the vast majority of them aren't even feminists, let alone radical feminists.
Yeah.
So, no, it's the press. Without the press, these people would be seen as what they are, which is a bunch of, I don't even know, put it sort of aging obsessives who have got I quite lose it. They're sort of aging obsessives, obsessed with sex.
I kind of think these are just old curmudgeons. It's like there seems to be a bit of a generation gap, just as there was in the 1960s.
Yes,
that's the impression I get.
Because a lot of it is exactly that, yes.
Because a lot of sort of millennials view gender in a very different way to previous generations.
I think, come on, if you move on to something a bit more cutting edge, let me just say this. I think it's partly because they are people who are tethered, nailed to the past. They can't get their head out of the 1950s.
Yeah. Well, conservatives, particularly in the United States, always want to go back to the 1950s, which always makes me laugh, because they worship at the altar of Ronald Reagan, who cut taxes. Yet the tax rate in the 1950s in the United States for top earners was 90%. But it wasn't a great era for black people or LGBTQ people or women or any other Yeah, it was a great
But
time for white
it's not.
cis normative heteronormative men. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
It's
Um,
not. It's not the history that I'm so concerned with. It's the fact that what they're harking back to. It's you pick up your politics or you pick up your identity at a certain point in time. And I remember the 70s. I wish I didn't have the ability to say that, but I remember the 70s. And there were lots of conversations about what's a proper lesbian and what's a proper gay, and gold star lesbians, platinum star, I don't know. Lots and lots of very sharp divides. And what has been happening since the year 2000, I mean, it was in train before that, is a feminism and a sexual politics which is much, much more sort of permeable, where you don't try and tie your identity exactly down to one thing. And they hate it. And all this stuff about erasing lesbians, I mean, it just proves what complete and utter innumerate they are, because if you look at the counts by the ONS, lesbianism over the last decade has increased by about 50%. I then saw some of them say, oh, yes, but that'll be trans women. No, they're utterly innumerate, because the rise, if every single trans woman in the UK suddenly declared themselves lesbian, then that would only make up about an eighth of the increase. So it's clear that there's a lot more declaring themselves lesbians, but these sort of gender critters, whatever you want to call them, they won't have that. You know, people with dyed blue hair are not proper lesbians, or they're not proper bi, and they don't like bi people. They just don't like.
yeah, but there's always been people who want to be gatekeepers. I know this from being into punk rock, and you know, the amount of people. Yeah, I'm sure it's the same with the goth community. You know, it's this. Yeah, that's not punk. You know. You know, there's always got to be people, and I mean, gatekeeping is basically just a form of bullying. You know, as I said, I'm sure it happens in the goth community. That's not goth, you know, and you get it. Well, we know we get it in the trans community with true scummers, the India Willoughbys and the Blair Whites of the trans, you know, who are trans, and
yes.
But they basically are trying to be gatekeepers, trying to be arbiters of who isn't trans. Now, funny enough, talking about Blair White. With Osma a couple of days ago, we went through. There was some GOP activists who decided who had a debate, if you can call it that, about are LGBTQ people welcome in the GOP, and well, there was one woman on that. Well, there was two people. There was one woman, Lauren Witzke, and another guy called John Doyle. And Lauren Witzke basically told Blair White the best thing she could do is grow a moustache out and tell people not to live like she does. And you know, the mask was off. You know, the thing is the GOP are not. You do not want LGBT. You know, most of the base of the GOP do not want LGBTQ people involved with the GOP at all. But the thing is, people like Blair White seem to think that they are the good trans who can suck up to the far right. Well, no, you can't, my darling, because when your surface requirements, you'll be, you know, on the cattle trucks and after the gas chambers with the rest of us. You know, the thing is, the impression I'm... Even with Biden in the White House, and I thought that Biden in the White House would start sending out a signal of to the rest of the world, get with it, be pro-LGBTQ, especially with the memorandum, you know, which is going to probably seep into foreign policy, and the fact that he has told embassies around the world, you know, to fly the pride flag if they want to during Pride Month, you know, which, you know, tells me that he wants, you know, LGBTQ rights to be part of you know what America stands for, which is good to hear, right? And I thought, well, you know, that might influence, you know, things here, but it seems to me that Boris is just getting more and more reactionary. I know it might sound like irrelevant, but yesterday Boris said that he wants to increase Britain's nuclear arsenal, and you kind of think, well, why does he want to do that? And obviously, it's a post-Brexit thing about Britain needing, if they want to, stride on the global stage, they're going to have to have a swinging dick, and the more nuclear weapons you have, the bigger of a swinging dick you have, but that's the kind of thing you'd think Trump would do, And now Boris is doing it, and I just think when it comes to LGBTQ issues, he doesn't give a shit. That's the bottom line. He just simply doesn't give a shit.
But he doesn't give a damn about any issues. That's the thing. The only issue he particularly cares about is Boris Johnson. Actually, the analysis of his nuclear announcement is he's not necessarily putting it up at all, which is quite interesting. This is yet more rhetoric, which, if you examine the small print, doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think it's a very fragile. Boris doesn't have a particular position. He bears the imprint of the last person who sat on him.
Yeah, and neither does Keir Starmer, which is even worse. Because the democracy is only as strong as the fucking opposition, and at the moment we don't have an opposition. We don't have an opposition speaking up for LGBTQ people, which really is worrying. People like Wes Streeting, are trying to say, actually Keir Starmer does, care about LGBTQ issues, but you just think, the more Wes Streeting says it, and I should explain to people, Wes Streeting is a gay MP who used to work for Stonewall, Labour MP. But the more he says it, the less I'm fucking convinced. And then we have the media, which is totally against. I mean, no national newspaper in this country has a pro-trans editorial line. Independent, perhaps. I don't think they officially do. I mean, I would say this for the who by the way, who owns it? Is it still Murdoch who owns the Metro?
No, it's not Murdoch.
Right.
Thought it was a Russian. I don't know.
Well, no, I was just about to say, because Al quite often gets articles published in the Metro now.
Yep.
And that is good to see, but generally, it's all. It's particularly the likes of the Times and the Telegraph, and then you talk about people online like Spiked. Ugh. Even people like the New Statesman, who are meant to be a left-wing publication, it's all transphobic. And then of course the most left-wing of all the Daily Nationals, the Morning Star, has time and time again given platforms to TERFs. What happened to social justice and equality for trans people? Are we excluded from that? I mean, the one major difference between here and the United States, I should explain, is that in the United States the left tends to be united on trans rights, whereas the left here aren't.
I'm not sure we have much left here. But yeah.
There is a left. Yeah. But at the moment, and I'll be honest about this, the left seem more interested in fighting amongst themselves, particularly about Keir Starmer, which, though isn't helpful, I kind of understand, because Keir Starmer is, well, shit. I'm not as hopeful as you are. I really am not.
The place where I would throw in some hope is, like I was saying, that Boris bears the imprint of the last arse that sat on him. And his success, I mean, it's bad. The British public are incredibly apolitical right now. They are a depoliticised nation. And I think a lot of that is owed to British press.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is...
But, no, let me finish. But the point of that is that they turn on a sixpence, or in modern parlance, they turn on a 5p. Because, you look, Starmer should be doing better. It's not just that he's awful, but Johnson continues to do well, because we've had positive stories about vaccinations. And I've been looking online today, and people are turning very quickly over just one interruption to the vaccine supply. Boris's support and his popularity is very, very fickle.
Well, we need to talk about some more serious issues to do with trans people directly. Obviously, we have to talk about the Kira Bell case. This is really affecting trans youth.
Yep.
For those who don't know, Kira Bell took the Tavistock clinic, which is the only NHS clinic that treats trans youth, to court because they regretted transitioning. And I remember I was prepared to give it the benefit of the doubt. Look, some people do regret transitioning, okay? It's less than 2%. But if you read the media, you think it's more fucking common. It's not, right? Kira Bell's experience is in the small minority. It really is, okay? And yet, you know, you have a whole lot of people, you know, not just TERFs, going, what about the children? What about the children? You know, have any of these people ever asked a trans child? That's what I'd ask. And the question answer to that is no. They don't ask people like me who, you know, I knew I was trans when I was 4. I first told someone I was trans when I was 11. I was prohibited from even socially transitioning, and it really fucked up my adolescence, right? More than it was already fucked up. There was other circumstances which also fucked up my adolescence, which you know about, but I'm not going to go into. I actually think preventing children from going through a puberty they don't want to go through, right, is actually, that's child abuse. And of course,
you mean enforcing that puberty on them?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, people say, "Oh, puberty." The thing is, the lie that you keep hearing from the media is, "Oh, you know, children as young as as young as 5 are put on HRT." No, they're not. They're put on puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are not HRT. Puberty blockers are a means for a child to figure out, you know, what who and what they are, right? Gives them time to figure that out with therapy and counselling and shit, you know? You know, it's not fucking HRT. It's not chemical fucking castration, okay? And this is the lie the media keeps telling, but, you know, children are being brainwashed into thinking that they're trans. No! You know, I mean, this is the lie we hear from fucking J.K. Rowling, that, you know, a whole generation of lesbians and gay people have been, you know, brainwashed into trans-medicalism. No! Actually, when J.K. Rowling said that, it just showed how little she knew about the trans community, because, as I say, you have fucking gatekeepers, you know, like fucking Blair White and fucking Caroline Cozzi and God knows how many others, right, who basically want to, you know, go around, you know, basically shitting on other trans people for not being trans enough, and saying, you know, you know, basically trying to prohibit people from fucking transitioning. So the news media know nothing about, the trans community at all. Nor do they want to, because I actually think that I actually think that a lot of people don't like trans people. The real reason is trans people have the courage to be themselves, right? And a lot of people are repressed, and it's kind of like, well, you know, why should they have why should they be able to be themselves if I'm not allowed to be myself? Yeah, it is that fucking attitude. And I remember Adam Curtis's recent documentary. Now, he's the guy who made documentary series such as The Power of Nightmares and Century of Self being his best documentary series. And some of his stuff is very high concept. And in his last documentary, he mentioned Julia Grant, of all people. And basically, he stated that in a way, being trans is the ultimate expression of individual liberty, and I kind of agree with him there. Yeah, and fucking conservatives, they always bang on about, how they're in favour of individual liberty. Well, trans people are exercising their individual liberty by being themselves. But because it's harder to market to fucking trans people, that's why I don't like it. I know this might sound absolutely off the fucking wall, but a lot of this is to do with the fact that, it's about selling people shit, right? And they want to put people into boxes. They accept there is diversity, but they need everyone in neat fucking, cubbyhole, square boxes to say, right, okay, this is how we market to this group, and this is how we market to that group. The other thing is, you've always noticed when something is relatively new, when something comes from like the underground or from the margins of society, people fear it. I mean, take I can remember older people of an older generation than mine telling me how when Elvis came along, there was the fact that him swinging his hips was sexualizing the youth of America, and it was considered demonic. And I remember when television came, when there was all the panic about violence on television and shit, and computer games. There's always this moral panic with anything which is relatively new in the mainstream. Sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there.
That was quite a rant, actually. Yes, I'm amazed that you were there when you remember when television came along, because I thought that was the sort of late 40s.
Well, no, but it was sure. But I do remember in the 70s and 80s there was still that same fucking argument, because well, television's been around obviously, since the late 40s, but. I can't. To be honest, still, I kind of think the proliferation of television really didn't happen until the 1970s. And then, of course, there was the whole, the one I definitely do remember is the one over video recorders, and the video nasties, and Mary Whitehouse and all that. But what I am saying is that there's always this fear of things that. Of stuff which is relatively new to the mainstream. This is what happens. I mean, I can remember the days when you would get all sorts of shit from when I was growing up and I started getting piercings and tattoos. It was really frowned upon, and you would get people who were like the age of your parents, sort of say, oh, come on, you need to conform, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Now you look around you, everyone's got piercings and fucking tattoos. Yeah, this is what I'm just saying. I'm just saying that, in time, yes, I think trans people will be accepted. It might not happen quite in my lifetime, but I think in 20, 30 years' time, people will look back and go, fucking hell, there was all that fuss, was there? Yeah.
I think they're far more accepted when people realise what we have right now is a very noisy load of people in the press. It is very much like Mary Whitehouse. Mary Whitehouse was probably the spiritual precursor of the gender crips, TERFs, whatever they are. We must find a name for them sometime. They're channeling...
Well, I've got a word for them. Cunts.
Yeah. They channel Mary Whitehouse, and there is always this element in UK politics and so on, which is prudish, which sees sex around every corner, even when there isn't there, which does make you wonder about the home sex lives and the home anything of these people. They're going to be there because you say, oh, maybe in 30 years. The point is, in 30 years, there will still be people who hate trans people, because there are still people around who hate everybody.
Well, yeah. But I mean, these days, people. I mean, okay. The one thing which seems, I would say that people who hate on black people, right, are pushed to the margins of society now, right? But you still obviously have people who want to debate, people who are Islamic, about Islam being a danger to society, right? The thing I have with people who want to debate, my identity, it's like, well, why is it that a cisgendered person hasn't a cisgendered person doesn't have to validate their identity, so why the fuck should I? What harm am I doing just being myself? That's the point I would make. The best thing trans people can be is visible. I know it sounds. Sorry?
No, I agree.
And we have Trans Day of Visibility coming up at the end of this month. And I wish, obviously at the moment with the COVID-19 restrictions, we can't do much. But I really wish in future we would actually push that day far more than we would push Trans Day of Remembrance. I'm not saying that Trans Day of Remembrance isn't important. Yes, it is. But I kind of think that we need to send out a far more positive message. We're here, we are contributing, positively to society, blah, de, blah, de, blah, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And, I always remember something which Faye Presto said to me, funny enough. She used to be a salesman for JCB, I think it was. And she said she learned when she was a salesperson, sorry, I should have said salesperson, that they the best way to sell something was display and demonstrate. And she said, well, this is what trans people need to do. Yeah, which is actually true.
What, we need to buy a JCB?
No. What?
Right.
Sorry, I don't know if that makes sense.
To be honest, frankly, given the way some of these anti-trans demonstrations go, I think buying a JCB would be a great idea.
No, you know what I mean. But trans people just need to keep, basically being part of society, and show that we are not the threat which some people make out. Now, of course, we're lagging behind lesbians and gays. I can remember the 1980s. I remember the stories in the tabloids about how gay men were predators on young men and all that bullshit. And, Kelvin McKenzie, the guy who still won't apologise for publishing all those fucking lies about Hillsborough victims, has actually apologised for the shit the Sun published about, LGBT, about gays and lesbians in the 1980s being sexual predators when they weren't.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it yet, but a lot of people said that, Russell T Davis's drama series "It's a Sin" is a good reminder of how it was for the LGBTQ community in the 1980s. That I remember people thinking that the only people who got AIDS were lesbian, but basically lesbians and gays were plague carriers. I remember all that. And in fact, there's still some people who think that. Sammy Williamson, the DUP MP, who refuses to wear a ribbon on World AIDS Day because he thinks AIDS is caused by the gay lifestyle. I mean, there are still some people who are really fucking backwards in this country, but they are few and far between. Now, the media and social media. Do you think social media does have a part to play in?
A massive part to play. It just completely destroys any hope of political dialogue or understanding. It's performative.
I hate to do this to you. I will be back in 30 seconds. I really need to take a pee. I'm just going to put it on the be right back screen. I will be back in 30 seconds. Hold on. Sorry
Yeah,
about.
I can't. You said about an hour or so, so
Yeah. We'll wind up in a moment. I just want to have a quick word about social media.
okay.
Recently, we had Abigail Thorne come out, better known as Philosophy Tube. And I do remember that there was one sort of trans woman who's a bit older than me. I won't mention her name. Who sort of went because they put out that video for the press, and they said that I'm now one of the most recognisable trans women in the country, and they basically said, "Who the fuck are they?" Well, let me tell you who Abigail Thorne is. They have 800,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? And that is more than the combined circulation of all the broadsheets, and so basically they have a further reach, right, than some piece in the Guardian. Sorry to say that, but that's the truth. That's the way things are going. Okay, so this is why things like YouTube, are important, right?
Yep.
Now, would you agree? Do you think the future is things like YouTube?
It's fragmentation. It's media fragmenting and everyone doing their own thing. I'm not sure what YouTube is the future, because I'm seeing other alternatives to YouTube coming up. But yeah, certainly it is people doing their own thing. And in the process of doing their own thing, they are creating openings, they're creating discourse and dialogue where there was none before. So
Right.
all that, I think, is positive.
Well, I just remember an activist meeting we were both at, and I was somewhat, when I pointed out that there were, some really scummy far-right people who had like 2 million subscribers, belching out fucking transphobic hate, and I said, well, this is, larger than all the fucking daily newspapers circulation combined. They sort of poo-pooed it, saying, oh well, the politicians, they read the broadsheets, and I get that. I'm not saying that people shouldn't write articles in the Guardian or the Independent or the Telegraph or whatever, But what I am saying is that most people, right, who I get abused by, are more likely to watch fucking YouTube, right? They're more likely to watch people like Blair White, or Rose of Dawn, or or if not a trans, then some transphobe like Pajama Watson or Dave Rubin or whoever, and so that's the state of affairs, and I don't like being patronized for stuff I'm seeing and I'm experiencing. Anyways, before we go, just to see if there's any questions in the chat. Do you think the only way to improve civil rights in this country is to bring in a proportional representation, forcing parties to work together, or would that have the opposite effect? Well, if you brought in proportional representation, it would certainly give, the likes of what now is the Brexit Party would get seats. But it's noticeable that the Tories were more amenable to the idea of LGBTQ rights when they were either in coalition or they had fuck all majority. Now that they've got a large majority, they can go back to being, the Tories of old. I would say. I don't know if Jane agrees with that.
No, I mean I do. I mean, the problem is you can't get proportional representation into this country because that requires getting Labour on board long enough to actually do it. And
well, I would say that Labour are very split on that issue. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn doesn't
they
support.
will never actually come round to doing it, and that's the problem. So no.
Yeah. And I mean, they are thinking about reversing proportional representation. I mean, at the moment, for the London mayoral elections, there's been proportional representation, but I read yesterday that Priti Patel is thinking about reversing that and going back to first past the post, which would probably suit Labour more than it would suit the Tories, but never mind. The likes of Jeremy Corbyn, who I have much love and respect for, doesn't support proportional representation. I do. But yeah, it's a good point. Anyways, thank you for joining us, Jane.
Okay. Well, come back.
Yeah. I'm glad that we got this one done finally.
Yep.
Explain, to be honest to people, we did do a pre-recorded thingy a few months ago, but when I went back to watch it, no, I didn't lose it. I've still got a copy of it, but the trouble was that I was on screen, but you weren't. There was no picture, nothing of you at all for some reason. I don't know why, because I did it on Zoom, and I thought, well, it looked a bit weird, and also let's just say I went off on one it wouldn't have. Let's just say I might have ended up in court for some of the stuff I said. So I thought
change there.
Sorry?
No change there.
Well, I haven't said anything today, which is going to land me in court. So, anyways, thank you for joining us.
It's okay.
If you like this video, then please give it a like. If you want to help spread the word about this channel, then please share this video. If you've got any comments, please put a comment down below. And the most important thing you can do for me right now is subscribe to this channel. I can't iterate how important that is. I will be back tomorrow at the usual time at 6 o'clock. I've got a lot of stories, particularly LGBTQ stories to get through. I also will be on Kevin Logan's channel at 9 o'clock tonight. Please tune in for that. We're going to be talking about some trans stuff, similar to what I've been talking with Jane about, but obviously Kevin has a different audience to me and has a far bigger audience. So, anyways, thank you for joining me, Jane, and until the next time, stay safe and peace out.